Good evening, everyone, and happy Tuesday. Welcome to the October 8th episode of Learning Live. And we are here with Crafty Kris. And we gave her the challenge to use some background stamps and give you some different tips and tricks and ways to use them. We know Kris has lots of backgrounds from all her gel plate printing and ink blending and all the great backgroundy stuff that she does. But a background stamp is a little bit different, and I think they'll work well together. So without further ado, it's off to you, Kris.
Thank you very much. Thank you for joining, everybody. Yes, I'm working with background stamps, and the challenge I have is that when I'm doing my journals and things like that, it's super easy to use background stamps in my journals. But when do I use them otherwise? And that's kind of the challenge that I took on this time, was to find ways to use these background stamps um, so that they're not just flat in the background of something else, that they actually come up and be and end up being maybe a focal point on other things. So I'm just going to go through quickly a couple of examples of things that we're used to seeing background stamps on. So you know the classic art journal page, and you have all your flat media on there. And I've done several different colorways of this stamp set. So that is your standard sort of way of seeing background stamps on artwork. And then, of course, there is the junk journal. And the junk journal, though, wants to be a little bit more three-dimensional. So on this particular junk journal page, I actually use the background stamps as die cuts. So I fussy cut them out and place them down. Had to keep them flat again because they're in my junk journal. I don't want it to get too fat. It's growing as it is. And I just created those little bits of stamps and cut them out. And I cut them out of already existing scrap paper that I have in my junk pile in my drawer to be used up. And then I combined the different elements together with some of the Tim Holtz washi word washi. And so those are kind of the more common ways that you see items used. So I tried to play around with a different look at what was going on. So here I had a background that had some shimmer in it, and I actually used a very pale yellow to create the icon. So you can see this icon here in the background, and I'm quite pleased with it because when you look at it dead on with the light dead on it, you can see all the colors, but then when you tilt it, it becomes much more vibrant and stands out much more. And it became sort of the basis for me to stamp another image on top. And so I thought, wouldn't this be great as a card? So I have my beautiful background. I have this unique icon that is supporting that why I'm so very thankful sentiment. And so it is kind of funky. I really like the way that turned out. Then I looked at the stamp that is typewritten, and Darlene and I were sort of joking about, wouldn't it be neat to use that typewriter and pop out some of the letters to make a sentiment? So I did do that, but my first attempt was a little confusing. So the only thing I could really do to get a secret, it's more like a secret message, is to stamp them in different colors. So I've got it, and white on black is I, and I have an O that has both gold and pink around it. So the pink is love. And then, of course, the gold is you. But it's too hard to read. So I tried a different system. I have a little 1/2 inch punch, and I punched out all the letters I wanted. So this stamp now became my raw material to create sentiments, and I've kept all the letters in the different colors to put on a simple card. But I've also added here using one of the stamps as the background for the actual sentiment. So it gives it some weight on the card, and it adds a nice architectural and design feature to the card. Let alone the background is pretty spectacular on its own. So this did not work so well. I'm still playing with what that could look like, but this was a whole lot easier to figure out. Then I went with using, in this way, I had a background with a stamp on it. And I thought, well, what if I put the background straight onto the back of the card and then put my sentiment popped up from that? So that was a kind of cool thing to play with. And of course, you have to realize what's spectacular about these cards is the actual background. So you don't want to play in too big a way with too much fussiness, but you just want to add an element of a base and a sentiment if you're working with cards, that is, using your background stamps. And then this one is a background that I had created that was a deboss, so it's pretty funky on its own, and I cut out and stamped all different papers, and I just pulled from those papers, and I did hundreds of them. So like I got a whole bunch of these on all different paper, and a whole bunch, well, not that, whole bunch of these on all different papers. So I've got all these different papers that I've stamped on and cut out and pulled the colors I liked and created this sort of die cut version and pop dotted version of a thank you card. With a simple statement straight across it. I think that that turned out very nicely. And I haven't completed these yet, but again, here is a very subtle looking piece where in the way that you didn't see the background image as easily straight on, it's the same kind of idea here. It's very subtle, but imagine that with your sentiment on it, or I'm even imagining this on a page. And I did start to do a page, but I'm not there yet. So I'll share that in Papercrafters, or not Papercrafters, yeah, Papercrafter inner circle when I get that done. But this becomes an element that you're going to maybe juxtapose a photograph on, and this becomes a die cut on another one. This isn't actually for that particular layout, but here again, I've just stamped the wishing you right onto my die cut. And my die cut then can be added to a page anywhere I want, and it can be embellished with other items to make it 3D and used as a die cut. So those are some of the ways that I used it. I do want to do a couple of options with you tonight so you can see how simple it is. And I'm just going to clear a space here. I'm going to be using this because this I find to be the Misty I find to be really helpful with some of the holding down of some of these trickier things. One thing I learned is you do not heat your embossing on your Misty mat. This is the mixed media mat because it will make it very puffy and melted. So don't do that. Do as I say, not as I do, kind of thing. All right, so I'm going to start with the first one. The first one is very simple. I'm not going to walk through this one. This one is simply taking a piece of my scrap um, designed paper and stamping one of the stamps onto it. And then I took a thank you stamp, and I'm just going to pop dot it and plop it right into the middle. So it's a nice background for a sentiment for a card. So that's the simplest way. And then I have That's a little more complicated. And then I have done, this is an interesting one. I quite like it. I'll show you. I've done a double image here. So what I did was I stamped with the white ink first, let it dry. I didn't stamp it so that it was absolutely perfect. I wanted it to be a little bit bumpy and jumpy. And then I went over it with clear, but I offset the clear slightly so I'd get sort of like a halo effect. I don't know if you can see that, but it looks like it has a shadow. So that was kind of fun. That was an unexpected surprise. And
Kris, what do you mean by clear? Is that Versamark that you used,
uh,
or what?
I used Versamark and clear embossing powder.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so that the shine there is the clear embossing powder over the white ink. The white ink itself is matte. Okay, so in that same group of stamps, I usually, because my pieces of paper are generally an A2 size or thereabouts, I put all the stamps on except for the extra large one. I have to do that separate, and I stamp them all at the same time. So this was from that same collection where you can see sort of a shadow effect on the stamp. And what I'm going to do, because I know that this has a raised surface from um, the clear embossing powder, and I know that the embossing powder is slippery, so I'm going to have to use something like a stays-on ink so that my embossing or my black ink will stay on top of my background. So I'm just going to quickly put this in. Oops, these are sticky stamps. Actually, I'm going to do that a little off kilter. Thanks. A ton. All right. And I lost my magnet earlier today. I was doing a one magnet bunch of stuff. That was not pleasant. Don't let your magnets stick onto your heat gun because you'll never expect them to be there. Because in the last 15 minutes, I actually found it. Oops, that shifted a bit. Let's make sure that works. It'll be fine. All right. And I'm just going to get my stays on because it stays on sticky surfaces. And this is a fairly new stamp, but the thing I like about stays on is that it can be a new stamp and it stamps very well. And I'm just going to press that down, give it a little pressure. Now remember, with your stamp platform, if you're using rubber stamps, which are what the background stamps are, these are made out of rubber, you need to take out the paper inside in order for the red rubber to sit properly. But with an acrylic stamp or a polymer stamp, look at that, that's so much fun. And what you get is you get a sort of different texture of ink where it's not embossed as to where it is embossed. So it's shiny and not shiny. And then that would go on a card very easily. Alrighty, so let me.
Kris, before you move on, sorry, Jen would like to know which white ink you used.
Okay, so I have a bunch of white inks. The one I find that does distress really well when I want it to sort of, I want to be able to play with it so it's not a nice, clean, flat print, and it has, it allows me to do it a little heavier, a little lighter, is the Hero Arts. I think it's called Unicorn. I have it here. Let me pull it out, make sure I'm right. So Hero Arts Unicorn. And I have a tendency to load this up. So it's not, I won't let it do a nice, clean, fresh, even print. I load it up so that it actually is a bit mucky because I'm a bit mucky. And that's what gives you sort of that little bit of distress look, but it's a nice, solid color. when it is solid, if that makes any sense. All right. So that's the thanks a ton. And these just simply go onto a page. And then this one I'll just show it to you because it took a bit of time to do. And I've got a smaller amount of time with you. So I've got clear in the background. I've taken my stamp and I've just used Versamark and clear embossing powder. I don't know. I have a problem remembering that. And then I let that dry completely. And then I went in and I used Versamark again and put the gold emboss on top. And it's quite effective. It really gives a nice base for your sentiment and a nice add-on to your card, especially if you're someone like me who has very fancy and very active cards. It's nice to have something a little more subtle to sit on top of it. So that's another example. And this could go on, any of my cards actually. This one's kind of a cool one. So there, I could just pop that on because you want your work to have as much weight as your message. And so it's kind of fun to play with that. Now, the one that I would like to do with you is I have a background and I am going to stamp black ink. I'm going to use StazOn because this is an acrylic paint. Generally speaking, when acrylic paint dries, it dries with a matte surface, so it shouldn't be an issue for you to stamp regular ink on top. But if you're using water-based ink, it might be tricky. So rather than take the chance, I'm going to be using the StazOn, or you could use well, I guess StazOn is the best one because it goes onto a smooth surface and you just want to make sure that that surface is going to be okay. So this one is a two-stepper. I like white edges. I'm not afraid to leave white around. I might decide, no, I like that at the bottom. I'm going to put this here. And my plan is to have my pop just a little under center. So that's where my U is going to go. So there's my U. But I have to first get my thanks done on the page with that sort of laid out. And then I'll do the U separately on my little piece of paper here. I could do it on the page and glue it all down and then do it, but I want to pop dot this, so I'm going to have to do it separately. So this is about where I want to have the U, and so that has me putting the thank right about there. And because there's black in this, I thought it would be better to have black as the color of ink that I use. But I'm going to use gold on the U. So let me just make sure this is all down. I'm going to bring that in a little closer because sometimes these stamps get sticky and they stick to the paper before they stick to the plastic. There we go. All right. And now I'm going to go in. Whoops! I kept my protector and I keep forgetting to take it off and it sticks to my stamps. All right, here we go. Loading that up nicely. And the nice thing about, obviously, about this stamping platform is that if you don't get a nice clean print, this one I want to be nice and clean, I can do it again. And it gives you a little bit more control to make things perfect. Now, see, that's not good. But I do know that it missed on that end, and now I've got my magnets together. This is why I have them taped, so I can pull them apart easily. And so I'm going to shove that back in the corner, put that back there. So I didn't get a great stamp on that one end. This is, I feel I should be able to do this without my stamp pressure tool. It's a very small stamp, and I think I just have to play with it. Make sure I get good pressure. And the more black or the more ink that you need to make sure it goes down on the paper, the more times you have to do it if you want it to be a nice clean. So we're getting there. You can start to see it, and one more layer should probably do it. My stays on might be a little bit dry. I should have thought of that before the live. All right, here we go. Now, as its own stamp, just think on its own. It doesn't show up much on my actual card. Well, it does show okay, but you sort of kind of not sure what it's saying. Once I put the U on there, it's like everybody's brain just automatically knows what it says. And so that's kind of cool too. All right, we'll get that guy out of the way. Do a little cleanup here. I'm just using some isopropyl alcohol. It takes off stays on very easily. And I'll soak this later and it'll come off with the isopropyl. All right, now I have to decide which way this is going up. This way. And I want my U. Can you see me? I'm off camera, sorry. So I'm going to put my U in the center here. All right, let's stick that down. Like I said, the reason I'm doing it this way is because I am wanting to pop dot it. Otherwise, I would have just glued everything down and then done it at the last minute. Oh boy. Small pieces, sticky. These are new, so they're a little sticky. Well, they're not new. They've never been opened. Okay, yeah, I said it. I've had them forever. And I've never opened them. So I'm trying to be good and use my stuff. All right. So now I'm using Versamark. And I'm going in and I'm putting a good layer on. I'm just tapping the surface though. I'm not pushing down so that it goes onto the background of my stamp tool. And then I'm just going to make sure that I put pressure all over all the letters. Now, you could use some powder on it to keep the embossing powder from sticking to everything. I did not do that. It wasn't a conscious or reason at all. I just didn't do it. And now I've lost mine. I'll use one of these. Thank goodness for paper. You can always find some. I did have a nice folded paper. It looks so professional. Looked like I knew what I was doing. Oh, no, look at that. See, that didn't work out too well. It's okay. I still have my things set up. I'm going to go, after I melt this down, I'm going to go back in and try to pick that up. I'm just going to also try to see, nope, it's dry. So I'm going to go back in and redo this because I know how I put it in the press after, but I can't do it until I've actually melted what's already there, because then it will become a big mess all over my stamp. So I'm just going to do this very quickly. So this is kind of what live is about, right? This is everything going well is great, but it's sometimes good when things don't go well, because then you can kind of learn how to fix it. Because if you have everything going well, you never have practice fixing things and going outside your comfort zone to figure out what to do. Okay, there we go. So there's the U without the part of the U. So now I'm just going to cool that down. Put it back. I know I have to get that used, so I'm going to move this little thing down to the corner because I think because I had it up here, it might have been an issue. And I'm not really worried. I might need to do some of the Y as well because I've lost a bit of the downstroke on it. Whoops, wrong stuff. Don't use the
I was
book.
just gonna say you've got the wrong ink.
Yeah, that would be interesting, wouldn't it? Hey, wonder how that would work out. Okay, so I need a little bit on the Y and definitely on the U. The O looks pretty good, actually. And the embossing powder I'm using is Superfine Detail Gold, and it was Superfine Clear as well from Ranger. So I'm just going to press. I don't care so much about what happens with the rest of the stuff, but I definitely want those two parts done.
Kris, can you slide up on camera a little bit?
Sorry, I was just pressing down my thing.
Yeah, thank you.
Alrighty, now let's get that there and that there. I'm having a very staticky day. I don't know what's going on in my office. Oh, there we go. We're all good now. I don't know why, but I'm struggling with my embossing. Not so much the gold, but the clear. It literally was standing up on end inside the container when I took it out this morning, and it was like, what? All right. Looked like it was growing. So I hope you can hear me over the dryer. One of the things that's kind of cool about gold or any of the metallics is that you can put multiple layers on and it actually will become dimensional. You just have to be careful that with each layer you don't overheat it or else it melts into a hot mess. So you can heat it up to a certain point where it will give you more of a lift off the page, but you know, there's a finite point, and I guess it's up to your dryer as to what that might be in terms of the heat it gives off. And there's our U. Look at how fun that is. Now let's get our card back. And is that, yep, that's good. Gonna stick some pot dots on there. Oh, I got small ones. That's all right. Put it down nicely. And if your paper curls like mine is curled, it's probably good to do more pop dots than less because you don't want it curling on the card. And you do want to make sure that all the corners are handled. And then you can just put it, I put 2, that should be enough for the center. Okay. Whoop. And I will post all these cards when I've got them completely finished. One thing I do want to do is add a little bit of something to it using some of my die cuts that I have here. I'll just pull those out. And they are stamped die cuts. Make sure I line that up. And now you can, it almost like makes this even more obvious. Makes it more like, oh yeah, that's thank you. All right, now this is too big, so I'm not going to use this for this card, although I really like that shadow technique. This might be just a little too much the same, but I do like this arrow. So I think I'm going to use, I've got a couple of different arrows. I think I like the black and pink one. And I have some crosses. So just a couple of little something to add to what's going on there. Yeah, it's too close in color. This one. Nope, I think I'm good. So I'm going to just stick those down flat. And again, I use glue because I find that it's more reliable on top of paint. If I can, there we go. It's usually just fussy. There we go. There. It's just fussy. There we go. I'm a scribbly gluer. I like to scribble my glue on. How many of you are very controlled in your gluing? Or are you scribbly gluers like me? There we go. Isn't that lovely?
We don't have any answers to your. Oh, Donna's saying she's a scribbler. Donna also said she loves the different dimensions on your card where you've got raised areas and not so raised areas, that kind of thing.
Yeah, I'm going to put that
and
as a kiss.
If there's time,
Yeah.
do you have time? So that larger one with the numbers where you did the white and then the clear.
Yeah.
Do you have time to demonstrate how you did that?
Absolutely.
Excellent.
All right. So there's our simple little thank you card. It's not super fancy. It's it says what its message is. Thank you, and there's the kiss. All right. Sorry.
You could probably also go in and add like enamel dots or something like that too, if you wanted extra bling.
Yeah, probably what I would do is put sparkle along because with my Wink of Stella, I go around the edge of the black because it's so great and do it on the black there. And I might even, no, I like it I like that plain. So I totally would umphut a few things. Umphup? Does that make sense? Is that a word? And this one too, I could easily glitter around the letters. So, okay, let's do the shadow. The shadow. Should I? Yeah, let me do it on the same one because that really shows off that technique nicely. Do we have time? Are we good?
We are good.
Awesome. Here we go. And grab my white. Like I said, you need a really mushy white. Like it's got to be pretty wet. Not what you would normally have your white as. So that is, whoops, let's move you out of the way. You need to be cleaned. Okay, paper first. Let's see, what do I have here? Okay, this is a nice background. Look at how pretty that is. Very pale fallish. Pale fallish. Okay, I am going to actually take a chunk right out of the center because I want to make sure I'm stuck down nicely. And I'm going to put my letters right through the middle. I might actually just leave it on and use that as a card. I think that's a smart thing to do. All right. Make sure that's nicely stuck down. I love the red rubber because they never stick to the paper. All right. So we're going to do a couple of layers of wet ink. I'm going to move up a bit. There we go. So there's my wet ink. I'm going to smoosh it down, give it some pressure. When I'm putting pressure on here, I'm actually oozing the ink out. So it's not going to leave a clean impression because it's so wet. It's going to moosh both ways. And so it doesn't come up like super white. I'm going to do another run. And even on your pad, maybe I can show you on here, even on your pad, because it's so wet, it separates a little bit. So you're never going to, with a super mushy pad, you're never going to get that super clean print. Eventually my pad does become drier, and then I might do some regular stamping with it until I want it wet again. Okay, so the other thing you have to do is dry it. So you can see that it's not absolutely clear, right? And now I'm just, oh, take it away from there. Don't want to keep making that mistake. There we go. I'm just going to dry it out. One of the things that happens when you put embossing powder on a wet surface is that it tends to get, the edges of it tend to get sort of fuzzy. It's not a nice clean emboss because the moisture underneath is pulling the embossing powder. All right, so I'm nice and dry. Whoa, yes, that's dry. Okay, so now I need to clean this off quickly. Where is my brush? There we go. And I'm not worried that it came off because I have to it's a little wet on the back. I have to reposition it anyway to give that halo, or not a halo, that shadow. I just don't want any weight to go with it. So I'm cleaning it well. All right, so let's, oh, look at that. See, this is why I lose my magnets. I should put them on here. Okay, I want to get a little bit closer. Make sure all my pieces are into the corner in case I have to go back in and add some more clear. It helps to get the clear. There we go. And now I'm just going to offset it a little. I don't want it to be exactly a match. Not that much. And maybe a little bit to the left. There we go. Stick that down. Okay, now we're getting our Versamark. And we're going to put a nice coating on there, not too thick, just like you would normally do. And I'm going to go back in, press that down, make sure I put pressure on everything. Oh my gosh, you know what? I lined it up exactly right. How is that even possible? Okay, so we are going to, okay, this is crazy, folks. I lined it up exactly. I don't know how that's possible. There we go. And to the right. I couldn't do that in a million years. Somebody was going to pay me $1,000 to do that. I couldn't do it. All right. Try this again. And down. Ah, yeah. Okay, we got it now. All right. Get that out of the way.
So, Kris, quick question for you.
Yes.
I know you were, because your stamp fell off, that's why you tried to offset the stamp. Would it be easier if you left the stamp where it was and then just moved the paper?
I wouldn't be able to tell how much I'm moving it. Do you,
Okay.
do you know what I mean?
Yeah. I
Um,
just because the Misty has the grid. Like if you went
oh
over
yes, if I was
one
being
square
smart
and
and
up one
using,
square.
yeah,
Yeah.
if I was being, see, this white is really magnetized today. Um, if I was being smart, yes.
Okay. Just as an option for people.
Yep. Move your paper, move your stamp, whatever works. Yeah. Weird. It's almost like it's got moisture in it or something. Okay, yeah, that's going to work well. Oops. Uh-oh. Oh no. There we go. Don't want to waste any. And it's not only it it's not only magnetized, but it actually is fluffier. I I have more in this at the moment than I had a couple of days ago. It's very strange. Okay. Now this is a very exaggerated one, I'm noticing, because I was making a very extreme effort to make that shadow show. And I cannot believe that I actually was able to get it dead on this first time around. There we go. Oh yeah. Amazing. Yeah. All right. Woo, hot. Let's just shake that out a little. Look at that shadow. Isn't that cool? You can see it at the bottom there. The 5 is a really good example. It totally, especially since the background was done with oxide, it's like totally pulling the oxide color back out, which is like so much fun. And I am going to be doing many, many more things with this and oxides because it looks very cool. Okay, so now to finish up, I could put, like I did here, just a simple stamp on top. And that I think I would do because this right now is very flat. So we've got, a beautiful, fun looking surface and a fun looking stamp in the process. Um, but if I just stamp something right down on it like I did with this one, although that's gold, maybe I'll with this one, it's very flat. So I think what I would do in this case is I would create using, my scraps of cardstock or media paper, and I would create a sentiment for that. And then again, you can always go in and use your fun little things to create little vignettes. You can tear these up. I'm not sure what I'm doing with that yet, so I'm not willing to tear it. And just create little die cut versions of things. I'm just throwing this out there. And, or you can even rip it off and have it come out from underneath your stamp piece that's on there. Let's pretend that's an embellishment, and just create fun little die cut cards. And so look for the layout that's coming. I just I only thought about doing it today, and I think that's going to be fun as well. So that is pretty much what I have been playing with and experimenting with, and I think I rather like what I've come up with so far using background stamps as elements versus as backgrounds. And although they're really kind of nice, like this is a background, they do look kind of nice as a background too, right? And imagine if I had done some embossing powder on that. That would even bring that up even more. Okay, that's
Well,
it for me.
thank you very much, Kris. Lots of great ideas, and if you have some background stamps in your stash, get them out and play with them. See what you can do. I challenge you as homework to come up with 3 different ways that you can use a background stamp, and make sure you post in the Papercraft Center Circle and let us see what you're making. And if you're new to stamping, if you haven't tried some of these techniques, Tim Holtz is a fabulous brand with background stamps. And I think All in Create and Tracy Evans have some background stamps as well. And there's probably a few others in the store as well that we are happy to add to your stash if you need our recommendations. So thank you very much, everyone. Have a wonderful Tuesday night, and we will see you all soon. Good
Bye.
night.